Hello. We are live. We are going to do an art tutorial today. So thanks for inviting me here, or joining me. I don't know if you invited me, I invited myself. My name is Danny Ferguson. I'm one of the youth workers for Youth Unlimited in Langley, BC. And I'm also the director of our Creative Life Art program. We have 3 goals when it comes to this program. The first is in the name. We believe that life's a little bit more enjoyable when we're able to be creative. Lots of people give up on art because they compare what others can do and what's shared online or what people sell on places like Etsy or Instagram or Comic-Cons or art galleries. Here, it's not about making money or becoming famous or even about what the end product is all about, but it's simply a place to engage in creativity for a few minutes. There's actually a lot of science about the brain that indicates that creativity can be a huge component into our mental health and into problem solving. So really, why not give it a try? Our other goals have to do with creating community around art and about having good conversations about life that stem from the relationships that we create and how we can make invisible things visible, things that we believe and think, and just how we view the world, and bring those out into conversations. And all that can be done through art. So I'm going to be doing an art tutorial today using some basic art supplies, things that most people have around their house already. What you're going to need is this is what we're going to try to create here today. And what you're going to need to do that is a paper and a pencil. I'm using a 6B. It says 6B at the end there. You probably can't see it on the camera, but it's 6B. If you don't have one of those and you just have a regular, HB or 2B pencil, or it doesn't say anything, then it's probably an HB. Anyway, this is it doesn't matter. It's just that this has a darker, softer graphite on it, so you can make these dark lines easier. If you don't have that, it's fine. You can always just get a regular pencil and just have to push harder, or get a pen like a Sharpie or an ink pen, and you can fill in the details later. Okay. We also are going to need just a few colored pencils. I'm using red, orange, yellow, and purple, or violet, or it's actually called raspberry, I guess, in the case that I have. So it's kind of a pinkish, purpley kind of color. If you don't have all 4, it's totally fine. But to create this particular emulation of what I did, you would need the 4 colors. And it can work with multiple different colors for sure. I'm just going to show you how to do this today and for the live tutorial. So if you want to follow along, you're going to need those now, because since this is live. But if not, you can access the video later when you have the right supplies in place, or I'm going to post a time-lapse highlight version of the video later on, and you can kind of follow along at your own pace. So really, with this social isolation thing happening, I think that many of us have thought about all the places we would rather be. And that's the goal of the project we're doing today. While I'm drawing a beach scene, thinking about watching the sunset in a tropic location, probably reading a book, and notice I'm all by myself, so maybe isolation isn't such a bad thing for me as it is for other people. But this is kind of something that I've thought about, place that I'd like to go instead of, being around on a gray, kind of rainy day here in BC. So I'm going to show you how to produce this, but the goal is to get you to be thinking about what your place would be, where you would want to go. And so I'm going to leave you with the concept of how to do this, but really I want you to dream about what you would put inside of this circle. And that would be something I would challenge you to send back to me so that we can again have those goals met of being connected to each other and using art to be able to talk about things that are important to us. So we'll get started here. Just need a blank sheet of paper. And we're going to make a circle on the page. I happen to have the a scan here. And I'm just doing a circle because it's easy. It's a basic shape. Most of us can draw a circle or circle-ish shape. But the shape could be anything you like: a triangle, a leaf, a box, shape of a t-shirt, a word with bubble letters, or anything. In fact, a way of amping up the creativity of this project is to think about an outside shape that describes your current reality and an inside drawing of what it is that you're hoping for. And then we just take this project to, a deeper level in that way. But for me to get a quick, almost perfect circle here, I'm just going to trace around this object. You don't need to be pushing hard on this. We don't need this to be a permanent dark line. Just light sketched circle. Light pressure. I just need to be able to kind of have an area that I'm going to be drawing in. And if it's not a perfect circle, don't worry about it. It doesn't really matter. Again, we're not working on perfection. We're working on a concept. This video is going to give you an idea of how to do something, and the real product will come when you do it again. And then you send me the results and what it is that you've put into the circle about where you're going to dream at. So after you make your circle, we're just done with the pencil. So we'll just set that aside for now. And now we're going to get our 4 colored pencils out. And again, the colors I have: yellow, red, orange, and purple. Okay, so we're going to take the lightest color. In this case, it's yellow. It's actually pretty hard to see over a camera lens like this. But I'm going to make a line. And again, I'm not wanting to make a hard line. Like, you can make hard lines, and it brings color out pretty fast. And you would do that if you were going to be writing something like your name, right? Because you want that to be left in there pretty darkly. But when it comes to this project, we're going to want to use more of the side of the lead of the pencil rather than the tip. So we're going to hold the pencil further back in our hands, and we're going to use the side of it to kind of brush over the surface of the paper rather than using the tip to draw on it. So I don't know if you can see the difference there. So we're going to do that about a quarter of the way up the circles. We're going to think about, they have 4 different colors, and we're going to basically have them in, we're going to split that circle into quarters with our pencils. So I'm going to do about a quarter of the way up here. I'm going to make a yellow line. And again, I'm just kind of sketching this. And you can probably hear my kids in the background. They just got home from hanging out outside, getting their exercise, and they are very noisy. Just, real life here. Now I'm going to take my orange one, and I'm going to go at about halfway mark. If it doesn't perfectly halfway or perfectly quarter, it doesn't really matter. All of this stuff is going to be blended together ultimately. So we got yellow, orange, and now I'm going to go with my red here, and then purple. And you can see I really didn't get the proportions right, so I don't have perfect perfect quarters or anything, but that doesn't really matter. So now I'm just going to keep purple, and again we're going to grip the pencil like this. We're going to use the side of the exposed color and make that brighter swaths. You'll actually see pro artists, when the pencils start to get short from sharpening it, they'll use pencil extenders so that they can continue to use the pencils with a grip further back and use it on the side. Hi John, thanks for the wave, very nice. All right, so now we're going to keep, speaking of sharpening, actually, we don't need overly sharp pencils. In fact, it's actually easier to do this kind of shading that we're doing with duller pencils. With a sharp tip, it wants to cut into the paper like we saw up here. And you get a real dark color line, but that isn't actually what we're going for here. So a dull pencil, doesn't really matter if it's sharp too, don't worry about it. But again, we want to just use the side of the color because we're going to, like I said, brush over the surface of the paper as opposed to trying to cut down into it. Okay, so I'm going to start up with this purple line here, and I'm just going to bring it all the way to the edge. And you see I'm working kind of quickly. I'm using just the side of my pencil, and I'm just kind of shading it in. I'm not worrying about if I fill it all the way in or get it perfect. There's lots of white still showing. I'm holding it pretty loosely, so it looks like it's, even barely covering. I'm going lighter than what that original line was. You can still kind of vaguely see it there. And Gavin, I'm glad that you decided to show up and give art a try. I know that you always say that you can't do art, but you're in the privacy of your home. No one will know how it turns out except for you, unless you share it. So, just feel free to experiment. This is for you. So we're going to fill that in. All right. Now that we've done that, we'll set purple aside. I'm going to get red. And I'm going to do the same thing here, just filling in this next section up to the edges. Okay. And I'm just going to lightly fill in this red section of my circle. Just like so. Okay. Now we're going to go to orange. And fill that in. And keeping the pressure real light on these pencils. Not needing to, even like in coloring book, like color fairly hard to fill in these spaces in between the lines. Just real light. We're going to go back over this quite a few times. So, if you have spots that are missed, or even if you go over this edge of this circle a bit, go over the line, it doesn't matter a ton either. You don't want to go way out, but a little bit here and there isn't going to matter. And then finally we're going to go with yellow. Yellow's real hard for the camera to pick up, so it might be harder to see here. But just fill in this area with yellow. Okay. So what we've got here now is basically a circle with 4 colored stripes on it. We've got yellow stripe, orange, red, and purple. Okay. And even that's kind of cool art. Just some abstract and different. Just more of a rainbow theme there. That's totally cool. But I'm going to slowly start to just layer some of these colors together and bleed them together. So I'm going to start again with purple. That's one we started with first time. Okay. And I'm going to start to go over this again. But this time, So it's going to darken that purple area up a bit. This time I'm actually going to start to go into the red zone. Okay. And as I move into the red zone, I'm still just keeping real light pressure. Okay. And I'm going to go about halfway. And actually what you'll see is as you put the, the purplish color over top of the red, even the red starts to pop more. You can see this red line that I put there originally is actually starting to pop a bit more. It looks more red, even though I'm putting purple on. And it's just highlighting and amplifying that color that's underneath it, which is interesting, right? So I go lighter as I get to about halfway here. It's light, light, light. And then as I get more towards the purple area, I'm pushing harder and darkening that up. How's everyone doing so far? So there's at least three people tracking with me right now. If I'm going too fast or need something explained again, you can type it out on the chat there, and I can see it. It pops up on my screen above me. Good. Waylon's doing well. Okay. So we have now gotten purple halfway through the red zone. Now we're going to take red and we're going to do the opposite here. We're actually going to do red going about halfway up the purple zone. So again, lighter pressure as you're about halfway up, and then darker as you move back towards that original line. Good to see it, John. Glad you're doing well. I'll darken that red up. Working on those edges there too. Start to filling them in a little bit more than we did the first pass. All the way down to that orange line again, and just like that. You can see this moves fairly quickly and kind of mindlessly. You don't have to spend a ton of time thinking about it. All right. Now we're going to move on to orange. Same thing again. I'm going to go about halfway up red. And down towards my orange line. And all the way down orange to where the yellow zone is. And you can still see paper through there, especially with the kind of paper that I'm using. It has a texture to it. You might not have as much of that if you're working, say, on printer paper or something, but this is a sketchbook paper, so it has a little bit of grit to the page. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to grab my yellow. I'm going to yellow about halfway up here, halfway up the orange zone. And you can see as we're kind of nearing the end of this process that we have a lot more stripes going across the circle now, whereas before we had 4 distinct zones. Now it's more like we have almost double that. I'm going to take my orange again, and I'm going to come over to yellow. About about halfway, I guess. Halfway through the yellow zone there. Yeah, so you can see we have a lot more stripes. The yellow is real hard to see on the camera there, but it is filled in, and we'll see that darken up as we go along. So now we're going to just keep doing this over and over. I'm actually going to turn the page slightly so that I can get a different angle on where we were working. And the reason for that is I want the grit of the paper to catch from the other direction, start to fill in more of these spots. So I'm going to again go with my purple. Now you'll notice as you add layer upon layer upon layer that it's going to be harder to notice any kind of difference. So you actually have to start pushing a little bit harder with your pencil too at times. Keep it as light as you can for as long as you can, and you'll find that as we go, you will have to start to push harder on your paper in order to see any kind of color come off of your pencil. So now I'm actually just working in the opposite direction from the way we were filling things in before. And I'm paying a little bit more attention to some of those white areas on the page that are still in there where I can still see the paper. But again, not continually worried about it. It just kind of gives me places to target. Okay, so just darkening that up a bit. And I'm also not quite as worried as, if I'm going halfway or not. I still am kind of shooting for that, but if it goes over a little bit, that's totally fine. Because you're going to stop being able to see kind of where all these different zones are, and you're going to end up just having more of a gradient. These are things that computers can do for us instantly. We also see it in nature, right? There's not often real super distinct lines like in a sunset scene like what we're doing here, but it does kind of just a gradient. So it's something that is very natural, something we see all the time, something that's very appealing to our eyes. And it seems like, oh man, you can't do that without a computer, but all it takes is a little bit of patience. So now again, I'm going over this with red. I'm trying not to go all the way up into the purple area, but about halfway you can still kind of see that original line. I made it real distinct and dark so that you could see it. If you started off lighter, then you wouldn't have that quite so much. And if it's there and if it bothers you, it doesn't really matter. Again, like, we're going to just learn this concept. And I'm really hoping that you'll take me up on the challenge to try this again in your own way after, with your own ideas. Okay, so we've done purple and red, and you can start to see there's less lines and it is much more of a gradient now. Okay, moving on to orange. Still going well for you guys, not lagging behind. Any questions, comments, jokes? I think that one of the things about a project like this is there's not a lot of detail work that needs to be done. So something you could do like while you were watching a movie, it's kind of just mindless, and that's in some sense like why it's so good for our mental health to do things like this, is just to let our brain have a bit of a rest and to engage our brain and body together. I'm just gonna drink a water here a second. All right. Just over like that. I can definitely see stripes there, but there's a whole bunch of them instead of the 4 that we started with. So it's working. If you happen to have good lighting wherever you're looking right now, you can look at the page from the side, and you won't be able to see it on the camera, but it's you can actually see a bit of a shine. So the paper is quite dull, and where the light now is something to reflect on with the color. So you can definitely see where adding these layers in is changing the paper. Okay, so now I'm going with yellow. And starting to darken things up. But again, going against the grain from where we were the first go around. It's the first time we went across the page like this. Now I'm going across the page the other way. And I'm going way up into the orange. There too. I'm going to start to pay more attention to these edges. Now, yellow really is quite light, but it actually is the light color that can help bleed everything together. So I'm actually going to start taking the yellow and expanding it. So now instead of going just halfway up the orange, I'm actually going pretty much all the way to red, to the red zone, and I'm just taking yellow right up there. Yeah. There we go. And if you want to get real crazy, you can actually just do yellow over pretty much everything. Let's do it. And what you'll see is just, you're going to see more of your color start to pop. And because there's still some white areas in there that yellow gets in, and it creates that gradient effect that we're hoping for. And you're not going to be able to tell where the zones are that we started with. And that's the idea, is with the layering of colored pencils. And really, this is how pro artists do this, like get realistic with colored pencils, which is something was always a little bit mysterious to me because I didn't feel like they could blend very well. But there's actually a whole bunch of different ways of blending colored pencils. And it's fascinating the results that you can get. But starting with a base understanding of how to use your layering and shading kind of principles with colored pencils in an exercise, what we're doing, can actually help prepare you to do much more realistic art later on. So this is a really good practice exercise, and it doesn't take much. Okay, so we just did that with yellow. And let's see, let's just kind of work backwards here. So I'm gonna turn my page back to the original direction, and I'm going to just go over with orange again, that original direction. And again, bleeding over into the red area, trying to, not pushing hard, like not, like the straight line type of thing, but I am putting more pressure on than when I started. Where does a cow hang its paintings? I'm not sure, Gavin. Where does a cow hang its paintings? Here, I told you could tell me a joke, and then I wasn't looking at the screen long enough, so hopefully you're still there to get the punchline. Otherwise, I'll just be left hanging forever. Okay, so I'm going to bring this orange all the way up as well. All the way up into the pink. I'm pushing lighter as I go up into that top area, but I do want to have some orange kind of working its way into those crevices. And that, pushing pretty moderately hard now. It's going to be harder to lay color down because the colored pencils don't like to color on top of each other, especially lighter on top of darker. That is what we're working on here. Okay. Moving to red in a museum. Very good. I like it. A museum. Alright, so now I'm really kind of coming into those edges and trying to fill in some of those areas where it was dark or was light, still where I could see paper in there. I want to bring that red down into the orange, halfway. Experiment with how much pressure you're putting onto the page. See what kind of effects you're liking or disliking. All right. So again, if you're just kind of joining in, I see some people are joining in here, I will save this video and you can watch it at your leisure. Oh, or I will post a time-lapse version of this on the page, as well as on my personal Instagram, which is at Danny_Ferguson. You can see all the art that I do personally. And, you know, we want to do more of these types of tutorials, like once a week or so. So if there's particular projects that you'd like to try, or particular supplies that you have that you're unsure how to use, you know, then let me know, and we can always experiment. It's fun to be working with, you know, things that you want to be working with, as opposed to just looking at what it is that I've done. All right, so got my purple. I'm gonna have to push quite dark now to get any kind of results from it. But now we're really gonna have to push hard. I'm gonna go over the red, and you can see I'm kind of following the contour of the circle a little bit more now, because I'd like to move away from having stripes. And it's interesting, as I look at it on the screen here, I can see way more evidence of the stripes on the screen than I can in real life. It's definitely lighting, and how the human eye picks up things is different than through the lens of a camera. This is why, you know, real art, like real pieces that people have done, real paintings, and it's always better than prints, because computers can never quite capture what art has been laid down fresh on the paper by the artist. Copies are never quite good enough. And I'm bringing purple quite far down too, especially around the edges. And then working in that circular pattern up to the top. It'll be lighter down here. I don't want to overdo it with the purple, but I do definitely want to add in some blending the other direction as well, because we brought yellow and orange and red all the way up into the purple, and now we're going to do the reverse. I won't go all the way down in the yellow. You could do a little bit down there, but because that's so light, it's a little bit more precarious than working with the darker colors here. You need to see I turned my page a little bit just so I could keep following that curve of the circle. And if you don't do that, it's fine. It's not going to ruin your piece at all. It's just preference on my end as I am trying to move away from those stripes. And you can see at this point, following the zones is pretty much out the window. I'm just looking for any areas that are still displaying a little bit of that original paper color, and I'm trying to get this color into those spaces. So, I mean, we could keep working on this and keep working on this and keep working on this. You can push harder and harder and harder. And that's fine, you know, but we've already put about 35 minutes of time into this process, and I don't want you guys to get super bored. So we can just leave it there. You can keep working on that if you want, but I do want to show you the rest. And again, this is like concept. You can actually do this with any colors, any spectrum of colors. It's good to kind of look at a rainbow and see where the colors kind of fit together to follow a similar pattern. But there's some pretty cool effects that you can do this. All right, now I'm going to get my pencil. Now again, this is a 6B pencil. And that the only difference between a 2B pencil and a 6B pencil is how soft the graphite is. So if I put them together and pushed, you're going to see the 2B pencil makes a lighter line, the 6B pencil makes a darker line with the same amount of pressure. Now you could take this 2B pencil and push harder and get a darker line. So it's not that, that the 6B is anything special. It just makes the job a little easier. And it actually, because it remains kind of soft on the paper, you can smudge it around, which can create some cool effects with this project. So I'm going to go around our original circle here and just add a dark line all the way around. And don't worry again about making it perfect. I actually want to make this fairly thick, although I'm going to start with just trying to go over that edge. And you're going to see spaces where you have gone over the lines a little bit with the color. And this is, where we can be a little bit, forgive ourselves for going over the lines and correct some of those areas and spaces. Now, if you're using a 6B pencil like I am here, then it's going to smudge if your hand touches it. So any time that the oil from your skin rubs against the pencil, it will start to smudge on the page, and that's okay. It can create a little bit of a mess, and sometimes it can put smudges onto your artwork, and you might not like that, so just be conscientious of it. You can always take another piece of paper and lay it down over top of your drawing and rest your hand on that. So if I had this one here, I could be doing something like this, and then I won't smudge it with my hand. Instead, I can just have that piece of paper guarding my drawing from my own hand. All right. So for those that are just joining us, we're working on this art tutorial on blending colored pencils together. If you've missed the start, we will save the video on our timeline. You can come back and try it at your leisure, and I'm going to post a time-lapse version of this project as well, so you wouldn't have to necessarily sit through a whole 45-minute live art tutorial, but sometimes it's kind of fun, and you can still interact with me and ask questions as we go, which you can't do if you were watching a regular video. And it makes us feel like we're together in some sense during the midst of all this social isolation, that there's still some ways that we can still gather together. So, maybe it would be more efficient if I just made tutorial videos separately and posted them, but there's something to having it live and knowing that we're doing this together. So I can keep just going around this and making it darker and darker and making it thicker and thicker. But you actually see here is actually a fairly cool art piece that we've created just with colors and with adding the dark line around it. And even that would be enough. And then you can start to smudge. You can use just the tips of your fingers, or you can use Kleenex, or if you have a smudge stick, any of those types of things. And it's actually, if you start to smudge it purposefully on top of your drawing, you can get more of that 3D effect. And I thought, as I was making this piece, about how it kind of looked like I was looking through a telescope, kind of at that space that I wish that I could be. That sunset scene in some tropical place where all my worries are gone. And I can do this multiple times to get the dark, real dark. I won't spend a ton of time on this. I think you guys can get the idea. I would eventually come around this and try to make real nice, sharp, dark line. And then there's areas here where in my smudging, it's smudged outside of the circle. And for the finished piece, I would prefer to have a cleaner line around the edge. And that is where I would use an eraser and just start to work at erasing that edge. So I won't spend a ton of time on that now. The idea is to give you the concept. So there's the concept. So shaded and darkened this up. How dark you want to go, it's up to you. But I tend to feel like it gives a little bit more of that 3D effect if I add that smudging in there. And there we go. I really overemphasized it in a few places to try to get it to catch on the camera. All right. Finally, we're going to get to adding some scenery in here. So, like I said before, you can make any image you want inside of this space. I just happened to pick a kind of a sunset beach scene, but I would really love to see what is that you would put in this space. If you need inspiration, I would go and look up silhouette, like just type in the word silhouette in Google image search, and you can see lots of different things that you could use. And anything, if you put it in as a silhouette, just outline it and then fill it in with dark, it will, be a good contrast, and it's a really fairly easy way to start. I will show you how I did this one. So I just had a person relaxing in a hammock silhouette that I looked up on Google Images. Okay, and I'm just gonna just rough sketch this in right now. And it doesn't really matter if you get it perfect or not. Okay, so you're just gonna want to make whatever your ground is kind of look like. I like giving it a little texture. You could just do straight across. You could, do a gradual type of press in there too. Now I'm gonna make 2 trees, which are basically just curvy triangles or spikes of some sort. Like that. Like so. Okay, leaves on the trees. So they are really just kind of curvy triangles. Like so. And if it isn't perfect, again, don't worry about it. And even here, I went off to the edge where I didn't do that the first time that I tried this, and it's okay. It's every art piece is going to be just a little bit different than the one before. So that I'm going to add more leaves. They're kind of like almost like eyeball kind of shapes. And here. Now let's see, I added a little drink in here on the last one, which is kind of fun. Like so, and then adding the hammock. Eight. So just a curved line all the way across. I added a hand hanging out of the hammock here last time, so do that again. Again, and not working for perfect. Just adding a little bit of detail here and there, just kind of give the picture some pop. Okay, and now I'm going to draw an outline of a person who's sitting here. I see a little baseball hat because it's supposed to be representing me. Okay, I'm going to kind of put a hand, shading eyes, overlooking the sun, and chest, stomach kind of falling into the hammock there. Not going to see a ton of it. And coming out to a knee, and then just a little blip of a foot. Could even add a second one. Just like that. And now all I'm going to do is fill in all of this area. And this is like what I said, you don't have to use a pencil. And if you want to fill in all these details with a marker, you can. Okay. Just like that, but we're kind of all been on here together for a real long time. Charlotte joined. Awesome. So I just want you guys to start filling in all of these spaces with dark. And then what we end up with is this. Now you'll see here, after I filled in the dark all through the whole thing. Now I did this with my 6B pencil, so like I said, it can be super smudgy. So just be aware of that. And then I started to add a little bit of rigid, ragged lines, because you remember before on the other one, we had a sharp, soft triangle, weird curvy triangle things, but they're hard lines. And when you fill that all in, it's fine. You can leave it exactly like that. But if you want to give it a little bit more texture, then I just started to add in just a little more raggedy edges, which make it look a little bit more like leaves. But after everything's filled in and it's dark, that's it. It's done. All right. Now, once you are done, if you want to set that in so it doesn't smudge anymore, you just take a little bit of hairspray and spray over top of your picture. Not a ton. You don't want your page to get wet, but it's enough to actually just take that graphite and just help it to set in and not smudge around places. So that's a cheap way if you don't have something called fixative in your house, which does the same thing. Hairspray will do the same thing. So there you have it. That is how we created this image. I'd love to see what you have done, even just in recreating this, whether it's turned out well or it hasn't. This is a chance for us to learn together, and it's something that we've gone through together. So those are good ways to start. And secondly is, like I said, this was teaching a concept. I don't want you just to be recreating art that I've made. I want to see your own art. So think about what shape would kind of represent you right now. Is that a triangular shape? Is it a shape of an airplane? Is it the shape of an oval? Is it a car shape? I don't know. I mean, sky's the limit on that. But if that outside shape could kind of represent your current reality, and then the inside shape, inside drawing that you're doing, represents where you would like to be or who you would like to be with. So it could be a couple holding hands. It could be, visiting someone in a hospital. It could be, at an event. As long as it's a silhouette, you'll have good pop on both sides of that. And you can experiment with the colors that you use. I've seen some really cool stuff done with shades of blue and white, and then making stars with some white ink, kind of stuff that you can do as well. But there you have it. That is our project. Again, if you missed out on doing this live with us, that's okay. We will post the video. You can do it on your own time, or I'll do a time-lapse version of it as well, which might be more up your alley. Whatever the case is, I hope to hear from you. You can message us here at YU Langley or on my personal Instagram, which is at Danny_Ferguson. And that is it. Space the final frontier. I'll try some time typing this. Remember that I've packed my art stuff already else. That's sad. It is sad. Well, whatever it is that you're creating, I hope that you share it. I'd love to see what it is that you come up with. Thanks for spending an hour or so doing some art with me and making it feel like we have a little bit of normalcy in our lives, engaging in creativity. And let's remember that we're a part of a community together. No matter where we are, we can be talking about art and how it makes us feel. And I hope that you take me up on that challenge. I'm excited to see what comes from it. All right, catch you guys later. Bye.